Well, habeas corpus doesn't apply, right?
Do you think it applies now? Patriot Act has eliminated your habeas corpus.
That's scary.
That's a known
Yeah.
fact.
So basically, what you're telling me is, for all intents and purposes, even as U.S. citizens, we don't have really any rights. I mean, if they want to just say anything they want to
Says, rights are
about,
not rights when they can be revoked. They're privileges. Yeah, people in this country don't realize that the rights guaranteed under the Constitution have been removed for about 20 years now.
because we're constantly at war, essentially.
No, because of the Patriot Act. And
In the Patriot Act, yeah.
oh, what are those Asian and European agreements? The secret agreements for the trade deals?
Vaguely.
Well, vaguely, this would have changed our whole world. This would have turned over our sovereignty to foreign countries. It would have bypassed sovereign countries and it would have gone to corporations. Yeah,
Is that what Trump stopped?
Yeah, when he first came into office, he stopped those. And
Yeah.
what's hilarious is you weren't
That's
allowed
insane.
you weren't allowed to speak about what you were reading. The politicians, they couldn't discuss what they're. And right off the bat, if anything is not allowed to have the sunlight go to it, it's corrupt. It's corrupt.
Yeah, no, I would agree. I mean, if you have to be, so top secret all the time and nobody can have any knowledge, purview, whatever of it, because it's, totally under wraps. But, oh, by the way, it can't be used against you as well, basically, right? So that's what to put it in layman terms, here's an instrument that's totally under wraps, Dave, right? That can be used against you in any way, shape, or form whenever they want, right? I mean, if that's not, rigging the friggin' game, if you will. Yeah, what a joke. If that's not rigging the game, okay, not that it's a game, it's not. This is serious stuff. I can't think of a better word, but you know what I mean. I don't know what is.
Hey, well, guess what? I saw
Good luck.
Massachusetts, that August 1st, Massachusetts dictate, they're going to start imposing $500 fines now
I saw it.
on people who don't. So what, I mean, we are in the
Oh my
land
God.
of absurdia right now.
Wow.
And nobody seems to notice.
Effective 1, all visitors and returning residents entering Mass must follow new travel orders. Travel orders. I mean, what is this, Nazi Germany? Travel orders?
That's it.
Do you have your
Have
paper?
your papers.
Do you have your papers? I mean, seriously, we're joking, but this is not funny. The Commonwealth has made great progress to slow the spread of COVID and gradually reopen the economy. Meanwhile, millions of people have been destroyed in this country, but that's beside the point. And all visitors have a responsibility to help.
But everything's fine and dandy.
Yeah.
Did you see what silver and gold did on open today?
No.
Gold shot up $18 on open.
That's incredible.
It's now up to 1918. It's I think it's at all-time highs now.
That is absolutely incredible. Holy macaroni.
Next week, just to let you know, because it's the end of the month, we'll see if they take profit. But also next week is the FOMC meeting.
That's big, right?
It could be.
Well, they're going to decide.
They come out and say again, we're going to do whatever it takes. Then that is going to mean buy silver right now. Well, buy gold.
Well, silver.
If you have a choice, buy gold.
Oh, really? Before silver?
Well, Dan, gold has been safe haven for
I know.
countries, corporations, and people for thousands of years.
Got it. Yeah.
Silver rides the coattails of gold.
Yeah, no, I realize that.
And if you look at now, silver, Silver, it's more speculative. Silver has more potential upside. Silver's high is $50 or so, give or take.
Yeah.
So, so it's not even half of its all-time high yet.
No.
For those people who think that silver is going to follow gold, then silver would be a good speculative play because you have a potential double there or more.
Gold's at 19.20 at the moment. Silver's at 23.18.
2 hours, silver's up 30 cents, which is 1.3%, and gold is up $16. It dropped back a little bit. $16.
That's still smoking.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. It's just, people should be nervous. And people, instead of being scared and nervous, the signs are there. You need to start taking steps to protect yourself. Government's not going to be there to help you. Did you see the Atlantis report tonight talking about gold?
I didn't.
Yeah. Well, you haven't been doing your homework today, I see.
Wow.
What they claim is that there's not even 1 ounce per person if you gave 1 ounce to everybody on Earth.
That's incredible.
So people say it's not valuable or not rare or, not relevant anymore. Well, I think we're going to find out it is. Most people can't afford gold now, I'm guessing.
No, I mean, even when it was $1,100 or $1,200, most people would have trouble with it. Now it's basically at $2,000.
Yeah. It's a lot of money. It's a lot of money.
It is. It is.
And you could argue that's one reason to buy silver is it can act as more of a transactional metal.
I agree. What do you think about buying, the old U.S. silver coins? The U.S. silver half dollars, stuff like that.
It's what they call junk silver. Junk silver is older U.S. coins that used to be made of silver.
Right,
so
before
dollars, quarters, dimes.
Right.
Are the most popular.
Before 1965 or 4 or something like that?
Yeah, they go all the way back. They have different years have different content. Long story short, I don't know what the premium is for that. I'm trying to put this into words without sounding alarmist. I personally do not think we're going to a Mad Max situation. And if we do, then I'm not sure I really can prepare for that, Dan. And I'm not sure I want to survive, a post-Mad Max situation. You know what I mean? I believe that there's going to be a monetary reset of some type. There probably has to be, I imagine. You agree with that?
100%. That's coming. Take that to the bank.
So gold is money and currencies are used as money. But the currencies go up and down relative to gold. So when the dollar goes up and down, it's really going up and down versus gold, as well as other currencies. So if there's a reset and your currency goes to zero or gets cut in half, then you protect yourself. Your wealth is maintained if you hold a hard asset.
There's about 2,500 prophecies sprinkled throughout the Bible, of which, to date, Dave, this is fascinating to me, about 2,000 of them have already been fulfilled to the letter with no errors. About 80% of the prophecies have been fulfilled. So think about that for a minute. About 2,500 prophecies, 80% of them have been fulfilled. We only got about 20% left, Dave. So that means the time is drawing near. Get it? The time is drawing near.
Prophecies, they don't come out and say on November 2nd, 1252.
No. But
it's all in code. So it's somebody's...
No. They're not necessarily in code. Not at all. Not at all. I'll give you one example.
Examples, right?
Yeah, I can give you one example, like in the book of Daniel, right? Sometime before around 500 BC, Daniel, who's a prophet, right? The book of Daniel proclaimed that Israel's long-awaited Messiah, aka Jesus Christ, right, would begin his public ministry around 480 years after issuing the decree to rebuild Jerusalem, right? And then he went on to further predict that the Messiah would be cut off and killed, and that this event would take place prior to the destruction of Jerusalem, right? Um, that was predicted, and it actually occurred. Now there's a guy
What year did he make that prognostication?
sometime before 500 BC that
And
they know of.
when was Jerusalem destroyed?
Uh, let's see. Israel's long-awaited Messiah began his ministry 483 years. So I know the temple has been destroyed twice. I forget the first time, the date, but the second time it was destroyed by the Romans, I think in 68 or 70 AD. Now, the temple's being rebuilt, by the way, as we speak right now for the third time. That was predicted in the Bible, by the way. That's occurring right now.
How hard is it to rebuild the temple?
Oh, it's a lot of work. I think it's Mount Olive. It's quite an undergoing. I mean, I don't know.
I mean, Chinese can put up buildings in a week.
Yeah, but agreed. But what you here's what you got to take in mind. Okay, this isn't a prefab slab job here. Okay, you're talking about the Holy Temple, right? So
so you're talking about building it by hand?
I think probably a lot of it, plus the materials. I mean, you could probably do some research and go out online. It's in progress as we speak, I believe. And I think it's slated to be completed soon, or it's been completed. I forget. But
what's the prophecy for it getting destroyed the third time?
I don't know.
All right, I thought you were gonna.
Maybe it's somewhere in the Bible.
Revelation.
I don't know. I got to reread Revelation. That's
what we're doing, right?
Yeah. Well, let me put it this way: for people that are watching this, particularly the doubters and stuff, there's a guy I want to refer people to, and I'm doing this on purpose because the Bible can be linked to science, and there's a guy named Hugh Ross. Okay, this guy is brilliant. He's got a PhD in astrophysics, okay? And he makes the case for God, and he makes the case for Christ. And he also has done the probabilities, like on the first one that I just told you about with the book of Daniel, the probability of chance fulfillment, if a human being was going to try to predict this, would be 1 in 10 to the 5th power, which is basically 1 divided by 100,000. That's a pretty small number. So take another prophecy, for example, where in the 5th century BC, 5th century before Christ, a prophet named Zechariah, right, declared that the Messiah would be betrayed for the price of a slave. Sound familiar, Dave? Would be betrayed. 30 pieces of silver. Sound familiar? You know who that was, right?
Yeah, that was Judas.
You nailed it. According to Jewish law, and also that this money would be used to buy a burial ground for Jerusalem's poor foreigners. Zechariah 11:12-13. And then it says biblical Bible writers and secular historians both record 30 pieces of silver as the sum paid to Judas Iscariot for betraying Jesus. Both secular and biblical writers agree on this, that this occurred. And the probability of chance fulfillment in predicting this is 1 in 10 to the 11th power. Pretty small percentage, right? So here's the bottom line. All 2,000 prophecies that have come, 2,000 some odd prophecies to date that have come to pass, they've all occurred. All of them at one point were predicted, and they've all occurred. All of them have occurred. So, doubters, atheists, you name it, since the beginning of time, well, maybe not the beginning of time, but since the scriptures have tried to debunk it, nobody's been able to debunk it.
You mentioned that guy was an astrophysicist?
Astronomer, yeah, he's got a PhD, yep.
I wish I could remember this. I don't remember the details, but you remember Carl Sagan?
Absolutely. He
Right.
was the man.
Yeah.
You want to talk about brilliant.
And he ended up dying of cancer, I believe.
Yeah.
And I remember him saying in an interview that when you start exploring the universe, it's very difficult to believe that this was just random, right? That this was not,
Spot on.
it's very difficult to believe that there's not a God when you, I'm not sure he said those words.
No,
But-
yeah, absolutely.
But some people have told me that he was an atheist, Carl Sagan. But I thought I recalled him saying that he believed there was a God based on his study of the universe.
Well, there's a split in the scientific community, even with physicists and stuff, about half are atheists and half are not. What are the chances? Because you'll have the atheists say, and I'm not attacking anybody in particular, I'm just saying that, or peoples that aren't believers say, well, we basically evolved from primordial soup, whatever, right? Okay, great. Let's say we did. What are the chances of that? Look how we've evolved in terms of in the planet we're on. It gives us everything we need in terms of oxygen, even how our lungs function with the alveoli in our lungs and our blood cells and the red blood cells and in how it oxygenates us and stuff like that. I mean, that just all developed totally random on its own. I suppose it's possible. And then when you talk about the mechanics of reproduction with a man and a woman, isn't it interesting that if we just happen to evolve by pure chance, even just physically and mechanically speaking, right, without getting into the details, I mean, we understand how a baby's conceived, right? Most of us do anyway, right? You know what I'm saying? Just even the basic mechanics. What are the chances that the male anatomy would be the way it is and the woman's anatomy would be the way it is?
Well, what you
right? Think about that.
Well, what you will find in the universe and on Earth is that almost everything is a mathematical formula or calculation.
Absolutely, no doubt. Everything.
So maybe
Actually,
maybe we're in a matrix.
Actually, I think you can take it a step further, Dave. Everything is a mathematical inference and calculation, without a doubt. And that's where the physicists and the mathematicians come into play, because they can speak that language. You know what I mean? They're conversant and fluent in that language. Whereas, I mean, we probably could be too if that's the path we chose. Wanted to be a mathematician or a physicist, right? We would have had to get conversant in that language, right? Otherwise, you wouldn't be a mathematician, right? So, yeah, the world is in the universe. We know this. From a layman perspective, I totally understand this. Everything is mathematically based. Everything, right? Everything.
Well, you've heard of Fibonacci retracements, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Well,
Trading,
Fibonacci is a mathematical formula, right? Now, what's incredible is if you look at like the shape of a flower or the petal, and you actually look at the wave in it and the patterns, everything can be traced to a Fibonacci retracement or a Fibonacci pattern.
Really? Okay. Yeah. That makes sense because
look that up, and you can tie in Fibonacci patterns to patterns in nature. So everybody thinks that things are random, whether it's a snow
flake
yep. or I didn't get much sleep last night.
That's okay.
My brain's a little slow today.
That's all right.
But that is so if everything's mathematical, as well as the spacing of our parts on our face, right? Those are typically mathematical formulas, and also, the game where, like you say, the distance from your wrist to your elbow is the same distance as your foot, is the same length as your foot. And people are like, no way, that's not possible. And then they go like this and they put their foot and they're like, oh my God, it matches. Right?
Now, and there's probably reason for that too in that design when being a biped.
Who doesn't match it, it means you are
deformed, basically.
Yeah. I was going to.
I mean, not trying to be funny.
Our word, but then people will get upset. So.
Well, okay. I'm not trying to insult anybody, but I'm just saying in general. So
you're special. Sorry. You're special.
We're all special. But aside from that, no. But to your point, you take the human anatomy, right? Like you just cited a specific example.
And that's how they define beauty as well. Like certain measurements, they say, like they do random surveys and they say, what do you think is beautiful? And they show them pictures and they found that within certain specifications, people define.
Right. And what they've also done is if they split your face in half, the people that have the most symmetrical face, like my face isn't totally symmetrical. If you look at this eye and this eye lags a little more. So I wouldn't be considered really attractive, right, by Hollywood standards. But people, if you look at Hollywood stars and you cut their face in half, for example, like this or like this, they're totally symmetrical, basically. Yeah. And that's what lends itself to beauty, and most people subconsciously don't realize that. So I wanted to tell you, Dave, I've always wanted to tell you I thought your face was symmetrical.
Oh, is it?
Just kidding. What? Oh, I take that statement back.
Well, the other thing I wanted to say is for those people who just aren't sure, well, none of us are 100% sure because we didn't walk with Christ, right? So
good point.
So, but this is what I will ask. What is the harm in believing and in trying to emulate the life of Christ? What is the harm that would be caused by trying to do that?
We'd have a far better world overall, in my opinion. The other thing is, one of the founding fathers, was it Franklin or Jefferson, said something to the effect of believing. I can roughly paraphrase it. He said something to the effect that, kind of along the lines you said, but something to the effect that I'll take my chances believing versus not believing. Because if I don't believe and I'm wrong, right, the stakes are far higher than if I do decide to believe and I'm wrong.
Put down money on a bet, right?
That's one way to look at it.
Well, there's no downside to that bet. Other than your time and energy.
Well, but okay, so you could say time and energy other than, but is acting and emulating Christ in living that extraordinary life and providing value.
The atheist would say, "Hey, I could be out making money, or doing the things with my life I want to do in my limited time on Earth, rather than studying the Bible or."
Well, yeah, and that's true. And again, to go back to Franklin or Jefferson, who said this, though, you have a choice to believe or not. Now, if you don't believe, you got to ask yourself, okay, I made the choice not to believe. And then when you die, what if you're wrong? You've got big stakes at hand now. On the other hand, if you choose to believe...
Yeah, you can't go back and relive your life.
Nope, it's done. You've made a decision. And the big guy doesn't mess around with you. He says you're either with me or against me, or for me and against me. Plain and simple. There's no in between with him. You don't got one foot on the...
Dead a lot longer than you're going to be alive.
Well, the bottom line is, we've talked about this. We're all sinners, absolutely. And nobody's worthy, and nobody's, good enough.
Yeah, and if you make a mistake, a lot of people who make mistakes, like, for example, somebody who hasn't had a drink and then they have a drink and now they go like this, spiral down. I think no matter what it is we make a mistake on, get back in the saddle. Don't
Yeah.
give up. Just
Yeah.
say, okay, I made a mistake. Let it go and move on. And it could be with trading. None of us, if you trade in the markets, you're going to lose money at some point.
Oh, absolutely.
So,
Talk about a humbling experience.
right. So if you have this idea that you're going to be perfect and you're never going to lose money, and then you get kicked in the teeth. So
Yeah.
knowing that we're imperfect people and that we make a lot of mistakes, it's like what I told you, Dan, with some of my experiences, is hopefully you learn from it and you don't make the same mistake over and over and over and over again.
Yeah, no, spot on. Yeah, I try not to repeat it at least more than twice. Once you get into 3, 4, 5, 6 times, you're in trouble. It could be catastrophic, Yeah, well, anyway, that was my overview, 2,500 prophecies. About 2,000 have come to date. I cited, I thought, a couple of examples. Another one is in approximately 700 BC, the prophet Micah, he named the tiny village of Bethlehem as the birthplace of the Messiah, Micah 5:2. And the
Is that in the Old Testament?
Yeah, I think so. I should know off the top of my head.
Well, my question is the Torah. The Torah.
The first 5 books of the Bible. Yep.
So if it was in those books, then it clearly is documented long before Jesus came along.
Doubting Thomas. That's where the term doubting Thomas comes from. You've heard that in life. Oh, he's a doubting Thomas. That comes from the Bible, right? That because Jesus said to Thomas, "Oh, Thomas, you're such a doubter," and because Thomas didn't believe that he was resurrected, so Jesus lifted his arm up and was like, "Put your arm over here," and he put his arm like it went like right through his torso, and he was like, where the spear, I guess, went. So isn't it nice when they crucify you? Isn't it nice things we do as human beings sometimes? I've always said this. If you think about it, if they're going to crucify the Son of God, what would they do to you or me? What would man do to you or me, right? And that's why I always say, you always hear me say, man without God is a beast, right? I mean, if they're going to crucify him and ridicule him, put him up there, drive spikes through here and through your ankles, and then take a spear after you're up there. He was up there, I think, for 6 hours, by the way. On a Friday, he went up at 9 in the morning, right? And finally died at 3, right?
I hate to say this, but the horrors that are coming down to this country are going to catch a lot of people by surprise.
I wish you wouldn't say horrors, but let me put it this way.
What
I think's coming down the pike, because I don't want to be an alarmist. Yeah, a lot of people are going to be caught off guard. And even the ones that are aware mentally, physically, spiritually, what's coming are going to be challenged big time. It's going to be tough to deal with. Very tough. Like we know it's coming. Or we think we know it's coming.
It doesn't, just because you know it's coming doesn't mean you can handle it.
No, I agree, but you're going to have a better shot at it because if you've prepared at least a little bit and you know what's coming, you're ready, you're ready for the fight, so to speak. It's going to be a little better as opposed to being totally oblivious. I mean, those that are totally oblivious.
Well, how horrific would it be if you were on the Titanic and you were on a lifeboat and you watched all these people jumping into the water, drowning, and the ship sinking? I mean, I guess you could say, hey, thank God I'm on a lifeboat, but you're also probably feeling pretty guilty, right? I've been saying it for 15 years. Well, maybe not 15, but a long time, that the United States is the Titanic in many ways. And we're already mortally wounded. I mean, it's not like we can patch the hole. I mean, it's a done deal. We're going down. And, you know the term, the barbarians at the gate. Well, guess what? There's more and more of them lining up. The whole world loves the U.S. dollar because it's better than, as Doug Casey says, it's the prettiest mare at the slaughterhouse. But
or the cleanest shirt in the dirty laundry. I mean, what an analogy,
But they will cheer when it goes down.
You take the BRIC nations, right? I mean, you got Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, and I think one or two other countries are joining them now, Iran or somebody else.
Yeah, Jim Willey said Iran is going to join
Yeah.
the BRICS. It's coming. The announcement's coming out. That's going to rock people's boat, man.
Yeah, I mean,
because now you can't pick on them as easily.
No, because you're going to have the backing of Russia and China. Yeah, I mean, if they're not powerhouses,
So
in the interest,
that's going to change. That's going to change their view towards Israel. All those countries. If you mix India into Iran into the group.
well, it's funny how that's coming together, because if you get back to prophecy in the book of Revelations, the invaders are going to come from the north and come into northern Israel / Judea, and they're going to go into the Megiddo Valley, and that's
north right now. Turkey's north,
and Russia's going to be leading it. Turkey's going to be in on it too, by the way. Good point. Turkey is going to be in on it. It's going to be basically Russia, modern day Russia, because the Bible talks about it. Modern day Russia, Turkey, and Iran. Ethiopia is probably going to be in there too, and a few other countries, and they're going to lead the charge, and that's going to be the start of World War III. And for those that aren't believers, I mean, you see these forces lining up. The Bible talks about it in Revelation, and the Bible is highly specific. It says, and think about this, when the book of Revelation was written, like 2,000 years ago, right, by John, what he heard from Christ. I forget what chapter and verse, but it specifically cites 200 million. An army of 200 million will descend upon Israel. Dave, 2,000 years ago, were there 200 million people even in the world? Think about it. In 1900, the world population...
I doubt it.
Well, hold on. I think in 1900, I think the world population, hold on. The world population in 1900 was only 1 billion. And in 100 years, it's gone up sevenfold. So go back 2,000 years ago. I don't know. We could do a Google search and look it up. I'm just making a point. That's pretty specific when it said 200 million.
Yeah, but
right? There were no...
most of the world wasn't counted back then. You know, they weren't counting all the people in the Americas.
Yeah, no, agreed. But I guess I'm saying that's not only a large number, but it's a highly specific number, right? So it's, anyway, that's essentially what's going to happen.
And a 200 million person army is a huge army.
Who's going to stop that? U.S. isn't going to stop that, not conventionally.
Who's large enough to create it? Only a few countries.
Exactly.
Okay, so this is Revelation 2. Okay, so this is Jesus speaking, correct?
I believe so. The red words, yeah.
To the angel of the church in Ephesus, write, these are the words of him who holds the 7 stars in his right hand and walks among the 7 golden lampstands. I know your deeds, your labor, and your perseverance. I know that you cannot tolerate those who are evil, and you have tested and exposed as liars those who falsely claim to be apostles. Without growing weary, you have persevered and endured many things for the sake of my name. But I have this against you. Mm-hmm. You have abandoned your first love. Therefore, keep in mind how far you have fallen. Repent and perform the deeds you did at first. But if you do not repent, I will come to you and remove your lampstand from its place. But you have this to your credit. You hate the works of the Nicolaitans, or the Nicolaitans, which I also hate. He who has an ear, let him hear what the Spirit says to the churches. To the one who overcomes, I will grant the right to eat from the tree of life in the paradise of God. Any comments? Okay.
No, that's the first church. There's going to be 6 more that he's going to address. I guess that's my comment.
Okay. Well, this is to the church in Smyrna.
Mm-hmm.
To the angel of the church in Smyrna write, these are the words of the first and the last who died and returned to life. I know your affliction and your poverty, though you are rich, and I am aware of the slander of those who falsely claim to be Jews, but are in fact a synagogue of Satan. Do not fear what you are about to suffer. Look, the devil is about to throw some of you into prison to test you, and you will suffer tribulation for 10 days. Be faithful even unto death, and I will give you the crown of life. He who has an ear, let him hear what the Spirit says to the churches. The one who overcomes will not be harmed by the second death.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing I thought is it reminded us of what we spoke about. Don't take the mark of the beast, even if it means your death.
Yeah, that's a good point. I was going to say you can only, it's easy to say, but the bottom line is being a flesh and bone, you can only die once.
Nathan Hale.
Mm-hmm.
I regret that I have but one life to give for my country.
Okay.
You know Nathan Hale, right?
Yeah, I know the name. I don't know a lot about it.
He was in Connecticut. British said he was a spy, and they hung him. Actually, Washington hung Major Andre of the British Army who tried to negotiate a deal with Benjamin of Benedict Arnold.
Oh yeah, right.
And
I remember that.
He went up and helped Benedict Arnold escape, and
Mm-hmm.
he got caught. And Washington said, "Adios," and they hung him.
Yeah.
And I think it's because the story I read, I don't know if this is true. It's because he had Nathan Hale in mind. So it's kind of like an eye for an eye, as they say. So the first church was in
Ephesus,
Western Turkey,
I believe. Yeah.
and then we have 2 Greek churches now.
Yes.
So to the church in Pergamum, to the angel of the church in Pergamum write, these are the words of the one who holds the sharp double-edged sword. I know where you live, where the throne of Satan sits, yet you have held fast to my name and have not denied your faith in me. Even in the day when my faithful witness, Antipas, was killed among you, where Satan dwells. But I have a few things against you, because some of you hold to the teaching of Balaam, who taught Balak to place a stumbling block before the Israelites, so they would eat food sacrificed to idols and commit sexual immorality. In the same way, some of you also hold to the teachings of the Nicolaitans. Therefore, repent. Otherwise, I will come to you shortly and wage war against them with the sword of my mouth. He who has an ear, let him hear what the Spirit says to the churches. To the one who overcomes, I will give the hidden manna. I will also give him a white stone inscribed with a new name, known only to the one who receives it.
God doesn't like idolatry. And what idolatry is, think about it. Put yourself in God's shoes. If you were God and the Almighty and you were the creator of the universe, you would be...
An imitator.
Yes, you would be pretty irritated if man, who you created in your image, all of a sudden, instead of giving you the glory and worshiping you, was all of a sudden, carving something out of wood or whatever and calling that a god and worshiping that. That's called idolatry. Okay?
Well, that's what Revelations is going to talk about when the Antichrist appears. He, in essence, is trying to fool people into convincing them that he is Christ.
Yes, the Antichrist in conjunction with the false prophet. He will make a stage appearance about a third of the way through Revelation, maybe something like that. I mean, we won't get to it tonight.
No.
But he's coming, guys, on the stage. He's coming. We're going to see it in modern times with the New World Order. It's all going to be intertwined together. So for those, again, that aren't believers, we're heading towards a New World Order, one currency, essentially one overarching government broken up across 10 or 12, what the Bible refers to as kingdoms. But what they'll refer to via Agenda 21 is regions, like 12 regions. So you'll have an overarching one upper high-level government, and then it'll go right down to the communal level, broken by 10 to 12 regions across the globe.
And really the big news event of this year has been what's going on around the world. And so my question would be, maybe this is a sign that the world has changed forever, maybe. And this is the start of the beginning.
Well, there are some people that believe, and I threw out some heavy hitters to you last week. For those that want to explore more, Perry Stone, heavy hitter, 80,000 plus hours of biblical study. The guy's a phenom. He's a genius. He's a walking encyclopedia. Another big name is Erwin Baxter. Fantastic. Expert on the Book of Revelations. If you really want to get up to speed on Book of Revelations quick, besides reading it, Erwin Baxter, fantastic. The guy's awesome. And then Hal Lindsey's pretty good too. 3 big names that come to play.
Okay.
If you want to know what's coming down and you want to expedite your studying, if you will.
Well, all I'm trying to say is maybe these are signs that happy days are not going to be here again. And it's remember when we were kids, there'd be people on the street corner saying the end is near, prepare, or what?
I totally, absolutely. I remember being in Times Square.
Don't see them anymore.
Dude, listen, bro. I remember being in Times Square a few times, once or twice, and in Boston as well. What were the dance clubs we used to go to?
Well, you said celebrations.
What's the square there in Boston?
Kenmore Square?
Yeah, Kenmore Square, yeah. I remember seeing them in the 80s, early 80s, walking around with the Bible and talking about what was going to happen and people totally dismissing it and, whatever, this guy's out to lunch, he's a cuckoo Bob. And, when I was young then too, I probably dismissed it as well. Yeah, being ignorant.
So to the church in Thyatira, which is also in Greece, to the angel of the church in Thyatira, write, these are the words of the Son of God, whose eyes are like a blazing fire and whose feet are like polished bronze. I know your love, your faith, your service, your perseverance, and your latter deeds are greater than your first. But I have this against you. You tolerate that women, Jezebel, who calls herself a prophetess.
Oh yeah, she's a interesting character.
By her teaching, she misleads my servants to be sexually immoral and to eat food sacrificed to idols. Even though I have given her time to repent her immorality, she is unwilling. Behold, I will cast her onto a bed of sickness, and those who commit adultery with her will suffer great tribulation unless they repent of her deeds. Then I will strike her children dead, and all the churches will know that I am the one who searches minds and hearts, and I will repay each of you according to your deeds. But I say to the rest of you in Thyatira, who do not hold to her teaching and have not learned the so-called deep things of Satan, I will place no further burden upon you. Nevertheless, hold fast to what you have until I come. And to the one who overcomes and continues in my work until the end, I will give authority over the nations. He will rule them with an iron scepter and shatter them like pottery, just as I have received authority from my Father. And I will give him the morning star. He who has an ear, let him hear what the Spirit says to the churches. Now that was powerful.
You nailed it. That's precisely what I was going to say. That's what's powerful. And that's what's going on in the world today, the spirit of Jezebel, which is total immorality and sexual perversion. I mean, we live in a world like that now, right? And I hate to say it. I have friends and family members that get livid with me, pissed, almost borderline violent when I say that. But the United States is leading the way in a lot of this stuff. Okay, we are, and again, you know, I don't want to cast stones or whatever. God knows I'm far from perfect. I'm a sinner like everybody else. But we're leading the way with this, and we're the world superpower. But on top of that, we're kind of a cultural power in a lot of ways, and the world's had their eyes cast on us the last half a century or so, plus or minus, right? Right? You know, when you're the leader, everybody's watching you, right? Yeah. What you do and stuff and how you live, right? Look at Hollywood.
Listen,
look at the garbage.
Baywatch was the most popular show in the world.
There you go.
What was Baywatch known for?
Yeah, I mean, we know a bunch of scantily clad people running around, right? I mean, that was the whole premise of the show. What?
Beautiful people with no clothes on.
I just said it. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, exactly. Let's go rescue somebody. And I can tell you unequivocally, 100% take to the bank, that the Jezebel stuff that's going on right now, she is referred to in red and purple later on, her colors in the book of Revelation. And I believe literally, and this is going to be offensive to some people, but I believe the word is even used, whore, in that book, referring to her. So that's what God thinks about stuff like that, being overly promiscuous and sexually immoral and all the rampant pornography we have. He sees it outright as abhorrent behavior, okay? And that's his word. You know, when I say that, some people get mad at me. It's like, don't get mad at me. I'm just a messenger. I'm not God. That's his word. Take it up with him. Take it up with the big guy, and he'll let you know what he thinks, by the way, right? And then you get the wisecrack, oh, what's he going to come to my house, knock on my door? No, but, you know, some things might happen in your life if you know, you want to challenge him. And
definitely do not want to challenge him.
No, I mean, that's where wrath and anger comes from. You know, where do you think human beings get anger from, that emotion? That's one of the emotions we have. He gave us anger for a reason, to use it. Not to be out of control and be a maniac and, you know, wipe out a village or something, but anger should be used when there's an injustice, when there's something that's truly wrong going on and it needs to be stopped. Before it can be stopped, you got to kind of get angry, don't you? In a way, if you think about it. Take tattoos, for example, right? I'm not judging. I'm just saying tattoos, body piercings, anything that deforms the body, the debasement of the body. And he uses the word debasement. Here's the bottom line, and I say this to people too, right? Here's what you got to know. If the life you're living is not in alignment with his word, then either you discard his word, don't know his word, or you dismiss it. That's your choice. But there will be a price for that, whether you think so or not. And then I've had people say to me many times over the years, well, I think this, I think that, this is my opinion. Okay, then I'll say, well, is it in alignment with the word? Do you even know the word at all? Most of the time, or a lot of times they don't. But even if they know the word, it's like, well, I don't agree with that or whatever. Newsflash, who cares what you think? Who cares what your opinion is? Okay, how dare you? That's offensive. Well, take it up with God, because, you know, the Bible's like a manual, right? He's telling you, you know, in written form, how to beware, how to live, and a manual how to live. Now, you have a choice to do otherwise. But when you burn yourself, so to speak, or you cause all kinds of problems and you're sinning and now you're in pain and you're gnashing your teeth, so to speak, because of that, that's ultimately your fault. That's man's fault. All the ills that are going on in this world, all the hardships, all the bad things, and there's a lot of good things in the world. I believe overall there's more good than there is bad, but there's a lot of bad in the world. But that's brought on by man. It's not brought on by God. It's brought on by our poor choices, our lousy choices.
Chapter 2 of Revelation and chapter 3 as well.
Yeah.
Are these letters to these churches basically saying you've done some things well, but it's not good enough.
I guess that's a way to put it. Yeah. I mean, yeah.
And he's he's warning them what they need to change.
Yes. Yep. Yeah. To all the viewers, I mean, God and Christ, the Son of God. I mean, God is amazing and awesome, but at the same time, he doesn't pull his punches, guys. I'm just telling you. I mean,
and like you said, Dan, you've said to me before, is God will give you a sign. It's just very often we see it.
He gives us signs all the time, and he speaks to different people, different ways, because we're not all the same. But he does all the time. He gives you signs, and we miss them a lot. I know I miss a lot of them.
What I've learned, and this could just be for me, it might be different for somebody else, is if however you meditate or however you process thinking through certain things, he will interject himself. And many times the ideas that you come up with, all of a sudden you will find one and it will feel like the right one. Now, whether you actually have the courage to follow that plan, that's a different story. But very often, like you said last week, Dan, we all have a conscience. Most of us usually know the right answer.
Yes, it's usually inside of you, and you don't have to run around asking everybody. It's your spirit.
Or maybe it was the last meal that you had that's making you feel that way.
Yeah, you got heartburn. Yeah, that's what it is. Sorry. Yeah. Take an antacid. But all kidding aside, yeah, we usually know what the answer is. It's usually in us, right? It's usually in us.
Well, we'll leave it at that.
Sounds good.